TMI Radio. And now, the Great Movie Radio Show.
All right, everyone, quiet on the set. Places. We've got a show to make here. Is Chris ready? Yes. Okay, everyone, in 3, 2, 1, and... Coming to you live from sunny Orlando, Florida, it's the Great Movie Radio Show, a movie talk podcast, starring Chris Schneider.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Great Movie Radio Show. This is Chris Schneider, coming to you from good old Orlando, Florida. I've got my special guest, Dexter, here, my dog. And so if you hear clickety-clacks or whines or anything, he is talking about movies in his own special language because that's just what he likes to do in his spare time. Our real guest today is someone I haven't seen in a while since we sat down to do this. We go back to Great Movie Ride. So this is very special for me. A good friend of mine, Tracy Fox, is here with us.
Hello!
Tracy was not only someone who would take you through the movies, but she would also maybe appear as a gangster or bandit.
Yes.
On the ride at times. You were a bandit, right? Do I remember?
I was.
Yeah, I was going to say,
yes.
You were bandit trained. It was always a fun time when Tracy Fox was working, and I can never say her name just Tracy. It has to be Tracy Fox, or else it's not her.
It's all one word.
It's all one word, Tracy Fox. It's great having you here, and I appreciate you coming to do the show.
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I remember when I put out that this was becoming a thing, and you were like, I want in, immediately. I think you were the first person to kind of like grab at the straws and be like, yes, please. And I was like, okay, I may be onto something if Tracy's in and we're doing something good. So hopefully we are, and this isn't it. We are going to do what's called Around the Track. So when I asked you about certain movies and genres, we could visit those and kind of, in the eyes of your favorites, recreate the Great Movie Ride. And it's not like we're taking away from, it's like a spiritual successor. It's like your own version. An
updated version.
We would go through the ride and saw these movies that were there. We gained an appreciation for the movies that we saw every day, over and over and over again. At the same time, we'd go home, and because of the movies we see on the ride, it would kind of entice us to branch out and try something similar. And so a lot of us may have gained new favorites or new opportunities to see films that we had not seen previously because of working on the ride. And that kind of creates in the mind's eye our own image of what Movie Ride was.
Yes.
And that was the idea with this, was taking everyone's favorites and creating in their image what they saw in the ride, or kind of like what they would like to see added, or their own version. And that's the fun with this, is we just get to have our own spiritual successor to what the ride was and what the ride could have been if it continued.
I do have to say there was a lot of movies in that ride before I worked there that I had never seen before. And so upon working there, it was really, I guess, eye-opening upon actually watching the films, because it gave me a greater appreciation for older films. Not to say that I wasn't a fan of older films before, because I had enjoyed watching classic films, just seeing different musicals and different gangster films or westerns. Most of them I had never seen before working at the ride, and then once I did start working at the ride, then I wanted to see all the films to kind of see like why these ones were chosen to be put into the ride itself. I
was the same way to an extent. I grew up, my grandmother, both of my grandparents really, they actually watched Turner Classic Movies back when it was just Turner Classics for a while, I think, before it became TCM, Turner Classic Movies. And I was born in 85. They watched that with me growing up, and I would be like, oh, girl's got her boring movie on again. I don't want to watch this. And as I got older and older, the interest started to peak more, because this is all she watches for the most part. There must be something here. And I think that kind of helped me develop the love for the older movies. And then, of course, growing up and getting the job at Disney and working at Movie Ride and seeing the magic and seeing the appeal and seeing all these people come through and ride, their eyes open to, different avenues than they're used to in film, it just kind of clicked. And
Agreed.
You got it. That was what made the ride special to me.
Multi-generational.
Exactly.
So, same thing with me. My grandpa, huge John Wayne fan.
Nice.
So we used to sit down when I was a kid and we would watch. He always had a John Wayne movie on anytime we would go over to his house, and kind of got started watching old movies through John Wayne. And then we had a movie store in our town that used to have the old VHSs of Shirley Temple. And
Nice.
so we would go in there and I would rent the Shirley Temple movies and watch like Curly Top or some of her other films like Rebecca of the Sunnybrook Farm, and get kind of taken to a different time when things were simpler and easier. And I really enjoyed watching those. And then when I came to Disney and started working at Disney, Movie Ride was one of my favorite rides before I started working there, and when I got the chance to work there, it made me fall in love with older films even more.
I actually, when I got there, I started in a different park, and I got the transfer notice that I was getting moved to studios and attractions, and I thought I was going to go work at Star Tours.
Which would have been your mecca.
Which I eventually went there after Movie Ride, which was great because, I am a Star Wars fan, huge Star Wars fan, but I was being told, no, we're actually taking you to Great Movie Ride. I was nervous, excited, scared, and over the moon about it because I've dealt with anxiety for a long time. I had a thing about speaking in front of people, especially large groups of people.
It can be very nerve-wracking.
It can be, especially when you do 3 or 5 shows in a row because of the rotations, and especially at the end of the day, you're kind of stuck on one for a while. There would be days where I'd go in and I felt like I could do anything. And then there were days where I went in and I felt like this is too much. I can't take this. Nursing cough drops all day just to keep my voice. It was a very weird time because I wanted to love the ride as much as my heart wanted to, but there were just parts of it that kind of
were draining.
It drained me. It drained me, and that's why I ultimately left. It drained me as a person, and I still loved it. And you could tell anybody. The last day I rode it 5 or 6 times. The spirit of what the ride was, I will never let it go, never. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take your favorites and go around the track in our own way.
I don't know how well some of my favorites are gonna fit into the ride, but we'll see.
Yeah, that one was great. It was episode 1 with Joe. It wasn't planned. It kind of worked out this way. We were just going to talk about them, and then the question, what scene would you put on the ride, happened, and it just took off. And I'm like, I love this because we get to use our imagination, and it's a little tough because some of these movies I might not have seen, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but at the same time, you might not have seen some of these movies in a long time either, so it's like, what scene? I haven't seen this in like 10 years. What would I do?
Exactly.
So, but that's the fun of it. We get to have a little fun. We're going to start with your favorite movie first, which Tom Hanks, Madonna,
Rosie O'Donnell,
Gina Davis. It's a great cast, and I haven't seen it in a long time, so I probably sound like a fool talking about it. A League of Their Own.
Yes, it is my favorite film. I'm a huge Tom Hanks fan, so honestly, I would watch anything that he's in because he's going to do very good work, and him, pairing with Penny Marshall and making this movie. And I grew up playing baseball in the backyard and softball, and so this one was kind of like
it hit home,
near and dear to my heart. And it's so quotable. There's so many lines in there.
Well, the big one is there's no crying in baseball.
Of course, yes, exactly.
Which is the only one I remember because I haven't seen it in so long. But I do remember there being a lot of one-liners. And you're correct about Tom Hanks, in my opinion. I love everything he's done because he gets so... He's a different person in all his movies, yet
you
can still identify as Tom Hanks. Like when he was just Mr. Rogers, he's been Walt Disney, he's stuck on an island with the volleyball.
Forrest Gump.
Yes. He's been... A Bridge of Spies was fantastic, too. I don't know if you saw that with him and Mark Rylance.
Wonderful film. I've heard good things about it.
Oh,
Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan. Oh, yes. It's my grandfather's favorite when he was around. He is just this versatile actor that really dives into his roles, and I appreciate that about him.
Mm-hmm. So he plays a great lush in this movie.
He does.
He is basically a bona fide washed-up baseball player that is a drunk. And
he's coaching them, is that right? If I remember correctly?
Yes, he's given this opportunity by Mr. Harvey of Harvey Chocolate Bars to coach the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League.
That's not at all in ties to Hershey's Chocolate Bars, by the way. I'm sure there was no...
Yes.
There had to have been
exactly. But at the same time, he's offered the job of coaching him, and he thinks it's pretty much a joke, but, Mr. Harvey thinks that he's pretty much a joke, and he's trying to give him another opportunity to, I guess, make it big. So he ends up coaching the Rockford Peaches. He doesn't really do much of coaching at all. So, yes, but it's one of my favorites for sure. And like you said before, there's many quotable moments in that movie, but even just the storyline of women can do just about anything that a man can do is...
Yeah, no, and that's a great story for it. Look how far we've come since then, where we're going. So we are officially getting on the track, and we're going into musical. I haven't seen Seven Brides for Seven Brothers in a long time.
Oh, okay, I thought you had seen it before.
You were like, no, it was one of my grandmother's favorites. Like,
okay.
I think her church, she was in a Methodist church play drama group, and she did like My Fair Lady, Fiddler on the Roof. I want to say they did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers like 70 million times. So I have seen it in some sort of fashion. I know I've seen the movie. It's been probably since I was a toddler.
Okay.
But 1954 with Jane Powell.
Yes, and Howard Keel.
It's one of those movies that stuck with you musically, of course.
Yes.
And
it also has they said, I can't remember who told me this, but it has one of the most technologically advanced dance sequences, basically challenging dance sequences of all time when they're at the barn raising, and they go to town and have all these different jumping sequences and dancing sequences.
I vaguely remember all that too, because aren't they like jumping on tables and everyone's twirling and everyone's dancing around? And,
very, very challenging to film all that. Took a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces and a lot of different, obviously, characters in the movie that were included in it. So,
and they had to be like ready to go too, because they're having FaceTime, dancing, doing all this strategic dance work, plus the sets moving around.
I can't imagine how long it took to film that. It was probably quite some time. So
it had to have been. With that, what do you have a scene that would go there? Would it be the dancing sequence that you just mentioned? That seems to be the most iconic of the movie.
I could see, yes. I think that would be probably the one that I would put in there, just because you could throw in some cool audio animatronics and have them like do-si-doing and spinning around and all that. So I think that would make it definitely interesting.
We could put the bubbles back there too.
Yes. With their hands raised.
With their hands raised bubbles.
Yes. Yeah.
Since musical had a couple, of course we had Footlight Parade, we had Singing in the Rain, Mary Poppins. We'll dive into another one of yours too, The Sound of Music.
Yes. I can see her on a hill, with singing "The Hills Are Alive" and spinning around as her little.
We'll have you do the voice because you just nailed it right there too. So.
No.
You went for it.
Yes.
No, that's another one my grandmother grew up loving, and I saw that plenty of times on TV.
Yep, that's my mom's first movie that she ever saw in the theaters. Yes, and so it has a very special place in my mom's heart because. My mom was one of 8 children, and it was not very often that they got to go to the theaters, and then it was not very often that they got one-on-one time with their parents. So, it was just her and my grandma. They got to go see that movie together, and it was very special. So she kind of passed that along to us, the importance of that wonderful movie. And it's Julie Andrews. She's an icon, man. I just love her to pieces, so.
I need to go back and watch that. And then what's great is I had told Joe when we were doing episode 1 and 2 that his list, some of them, he hit a lot of anime stuff and things I'd never seen. I was like, I'm going to have to go watch these. So I'm holding on to everyone's list and which one have I not seen in forever? Which one have I never seen? And I'm trying to
compile
go
a list.
Back. Oh, man, I'm going to be busy watching movies for a while.
You're going to need to barricade yourself for a whole month.
I'll just take a month off work.
Yep.
And just watch movies.
It's perfect.
It is perfect. So we're going through the doors, and we come into... I guess you could keep some sort of alley there. It's been a while since I've watched this movie. But Scorsese is a huge, huge factor into modern-day mob movies.
Yes. He's been doing it since, pretty much the 70s when he started out with Mean Streets,
Mean Streets is one I still haven't seen.
It's good, but
a buddy at work tells me it's his best, and I need to see it. And, of course, I've seen The Departed, I've seen Goodfellas. I just watched The Irishman, and that was phenomenal. Long movie, but it was great. But
I didn't know he directed that.
He did, yeah, and it's the first time he's worked with Al Pacino, which is surprising. You would think Pacino, De Niro, and Pesci, they've had to have worked together with Scorsese before. De Niro and Pesci have. Pacino hasn't.
That's
which I didn't even think. I was like, he's worked with him, yes. No.
Because when you think of mob, you think of Pacino. He's one of, like, I guess, the perfect portrayers of, that dark mob life because of Godfather, but also because of Scarface.
Yeah. But The Departed is your favorite mob movie of all time, which Goodfellas is your number 2. I don't blame you at all. It's a wonderful film, but I think he took a really big step up with The Departed. And I love the cast, too. I mean, you have Leo, you have Mark Wahlberg, you have Matt Damon, you have Jack Nicholson.
Yes.
God, it was just this whole twist of a story that things
just
aren't what they seem.
Coming.
Exactly.
When I saw that, I was like, wow, like completely shocked as to where the story went. You know what I mean?
And we're being as non-descriptive as possible with this because I'm sure a lot of people have seen The Departed, but if you haven't, nothing needs to be spoiled. I can't spoil a thing for this movie.
Yes.
Because it is just so good.
Yes.
Such a good film. The first time I saw it, I sat there for a good maybe 10 minutes after it was done, kind of with my jaw to the floor, like,
what just happened?
Like, what just happened? Where am I? I had to like refigure out who I was as a person. Was I just born? Have I been sitting here for years? He's a master storyteller. He's done great movies since then. You know, with The Aviator, Hugo was a great movie he did because it still captured the essence that he loves to do with art cinema, but also it was one that he said, I make all these movies with murder and killings. My kids can't watch them. I want to make one that they can watch. So he did Hugo, and I love that movie a lot because it touches George Méliès's Trip to the Moon, which is a great film from the early 1900s. Of course, he's done Wolf of Wall Street, Irishman, which if you haven't seen, highly recommend it. Very good film.
I've heard very good things about it, yes.
And Scorsese, if you want a movie done right in that mentality, you definitely got to dial up Scorsese. He's had some great projects. Do you have a scene off the top of your head that you could put from The Departed and put in the ride? Or
no, not that I can think of. I think it's just the story itself is so compelling, but I can't think of anything that would be super iconic, that would be along the lines of basically James Cagney up against the door, you know, with him talking at the Red Oak Social Club. Like, there's nothing I can say that would kind of compare it to Cagney in the ride, you know? It's a
tough cookie to dissect and put something there. I have a hard time thinking of what I could put there too, especially if you're going to incorporate a shootout and multiple characters being involved. And it's a really hard one to put out there. So we'll just make you watch the movie and kind of figure it out for yourself.
Yes, we don't want to ruin anything.
We don't.
So we want you to be just as shocked as we were.
We have come through the doors into our western area. Tumbleweeds are moving and the wind is blowing, and we're keeping John Wayne
I
again.
Love John Wayne.
I feel that every time we do
iconic.
This, he is, and it's either him or Eastwood.
Yes,
and we both were there.
Yes,
so we're getting to keep John Wayne, which is great, and McLintock.
Yes,
that was
now most people have never seen McLintock.
I am one.
Yes, and that's normal because it's not your typical John Wayne movie. So for those of you who have never seen McLintock, which is probably about 95% of the population, basically it's him with his classic pair-up of Maureen O'Hara. Mm-hmm. They did quite a few movies together, actually. And this was later on in his career that
it was 63.
Yeah, that he made this movie. So almost probably to the end of his career, roughly. And the storyline of basically McLintock is he is a ranch owner. Him and Maureen O'Sullivan are... Did I just say Maureen O'Sullivan?
You did say Maureen O'Sullivan.
Maureen O'Hara are married. But
one of those Merino ladies.
I know. You say it so long, Maureen O'Sullivan.
Yeah,
it just comes out naturally.
There. Oh, hello. Anyways, our friend Dexter is here. Hello, Dexter.
Yes.
You're on the podcast, buddy.
Yes, with his clickety-clack.
Don't come back. And his snooping into everything. He's got to be a part of this.
Yes.
He hasn't seen McLintock either.
No,
so you know.
It's quite entertaining. Anyways, John Wayne marries Maureen O'Hara. They are very Spitfire type people. Both are very strong-willed. They end up having a daughter. They are two opposite people. They fight a lot, and then she leaves and basically goes to Boston and raises the daughter in Boston. Well, daughter's coming back into town with the mom, and obviously
Oh.
Things fly. What's the word I'm looking for? Sparks fly. That's the word I'm looking
got
for.
it, yeah.
Sparks fly, and the rest is kind of history, I guess you could say. There's a very entertaining scene where she is down to her undergarments and running around the town, and it's quite with him chasing after her.
Sparks fly, all right.
Yes,
there
exactly.
you go.
So,
which would explain why there's an exclamation point.
Yes.
On the title, McLintock.
Yes,
Ha!
exactly.
It's got to be there, so there's excitement going on.
Yes. So.
And yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I've seen the name. I've heard anytime John Wayne's brought up, that name flies around a lot. Mm-hmm. I love how the poster says "wallops the daylights out of every western you've ever seen," and he's on it spanking her with the undergarments you were just speaking. So It's very
yes.
Huh.
Yes. It's entertaining to say the least. Quite comical. If I say
there you
so
go.
myself.
Yeah, that will have to be one I check out. Is there a particular scene?
So the scene I was telling you about, where she literally
running around town.
She's in the equivalent of her corset and her smalls, I think they're called.
Yeah. And
she's running. It's a town fair, and she's running around, and he finally lets it rip. He's tired of how she's talking to him, and so she's trying to run from him because she knows that he's mad, and he's chasing her while she's wearing her undergarments.
We should make this fun because this sounds like a fun moment.
Yes.
She's trying to run away, right?
Yes.
Have her take the ride.
So it would be like the pirate scene where, like, they're running around with the chick, like the woman is chasing the chicken.
Yeah.
You could have something like that.
Let's have her take the vehicle.
Oh, that would be entertaining.
Let's have her take the vehicle to run out of town, and then she just goes into this whole other world that she wasn't expecting.
Yes, so no Kate Durango. We can just have...
We could have her in her undergarments taking the ride.
Hijacking the vehicle. trying to get away from
costuming?
Oh, yes.
I have to pick up my undergarments for
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's pretty great.
That would be quite comical.
That would be, yeah.
I ripped my undergarments. I need to go to costuming.
Yeah, right. I think that would be great too, because you could have like John Wayne kind of like, no, don't go, and whatever she says in the movie, and takes the ride.
And he's coming after her.
So we're gonna go to the bandit route this round. Mm-hmm. We were kind of thinking gangster, but since this is working out better, I think. Wait, what's that?
Yeehaw! Well, look-a here. We sure do hope you're enjoying this episode of the Great Movie Radio Show, starring my old partner, Chris Schneider. Don't none of you hombres move always on this break. We'll be back in just a moment.
Warning. Remain on this podcast. The advertisement you are experiencing is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
Hey, Chris here. Wanting to talk to you about the Tower Arcade and Lounge, located at the Citrus Tower in Claremont, Florida. The Tower Arcade and Lounge is a newly opened retro arcade and bar. For a small cover, visitors can enjoy unlimited free play on more than 30 games, such as Centipede, Area 51, Donkey Kong, and favorite of mine, Pac-Man. They have many other classic arcade games as well. Mechanical games such as pinball, hoops, crane and skill prize games are on old school quarters. They have a great selection of beer and wine, wine-based liquors, and sodas. Snacks are available at a reduced price because of the cover charge. Every Thursday night is hospitality night with a 10% off discount with employee ID. Visit the Tower Arcade and Lounge on Facebook or their website, www.towerarcade.com, or find them on Instagram with hashtag TowerArcadeCT. The Tower Arcade and Lounge. Tell them Chris from the GMR show sent you. So we are looking at opportunities for networking and cross-promoting our podcast with maybe some local businesses or an online business that would like an opportunity to get their product out there. If you feel like you would like to take advantage of this unique opportunity, shoot us an email at thegmrshow@gmail.com. We're looking at businesses to advertise maybe 30 to 45 seconds worth and be featured here on the show and on our website as well. Again, if you're interested, you can email us at thegmrshow@gmail.com, and we'll make sure our people contacts your people.
Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris Schneider, which means you hit the mother load. Don't forget to stake your claim by hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss another great episode of this Movie Talk podcast. See you on the trail.
We've been taken by a strange lady in undergarments, and we're coming into science fiction.
Yes.
And
this is getting entertaining now.
This is exactly what I was wanting from this is talking about these films, and even though I have no idea what to talk about with McLintock, this one I definitely do. And it's a ride. It's already a ride on its own, and it's such a good ride. E.T. is your favorite science fiction film.
Love it.
So we get to come in to... I feel weird
because it could
be
very similar to what it currently is.
I was going to say it's almost like it's already been done for us. If you've ridden E.T. the ride, and it is very simple and a very old school ride, and also silly in its own right. I love the fact that they take the cards and have you put your name, and then E.T. says all 70 different names at once, and it sounds like
very robotic.
one jumbled name, like Bob, Ridge, Jane, Curtis, Bob, person. It's such a great film. I remember seeing it for the first time when I was a child.
It terrified me.
I was scared. Yeah,
yes.
I couldn't watch it.
The guys in the suits, when E.T. is like, I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but there's a scene where obviously their home becomes taken over by FBI agents, and they're all wearing the equivalent of hazmat suits, and just seeing them look over E.T. and their heavy breathing and like all their tools that they have, and looking at him on a table like he is basically this scary monster. It was terrifying to see that as a little kid, you know?
It was the part with the closet that scared me. When he had like all the clothes coloring and he like screamed at Elliot. That scared the bejesus out of me when I was a child. Like I
thought you were going to say when he was hiding in the closet with the stuffed animals. And I was like, what was so terrifying about that?
Well, no, I want to say it was that part. Was he in the closet with like clothes coloring? And I can't remember exactly, but it was a part where he was hiding and he screamed at Elliot and they screamed together. And I was like maybe 6, and it scared the crap out of me. But I'd seen Jurassic Park, so I have a weird brain, and that didn't scare me whatsoever. So E.T., I just couldn't do it. And I remember my parents telling me, we're gonna watch E.T., you might want to leave the room. Oh no! And I would like go, and I didn't watch it for years after.
Me too!
Years and years and years.
Me too.
Getting to my teens, I just haven't watched it again.
Yes. I watched it recently. Now that I see it as an adult, I feel like I appreciate it a little bit more than I did as like a kid, because now I wasn't terrified of it. It made more sense, I guess. And just it was the shock factor that got me. And Spielberg was really great at bringing shock factor to quality family films. Yes.
It almost kind of like he has a way of bridging you into scary stories without taking you completely into one, and that's what was always good about him. You know, of course, he had Jaws and Close Encounters, and he did Jurassic Park, so he had a way to kind of bridge these terrors into family films that
made them
relatable and more adventurous, like getting stuck in a park with dinosaurs with your family. Alien, when that was done, which is your number 2 science fiction. So
I wonder why.
I wonder why.
Nothing as iconic as when the thing is coming out of the tummy at all. Oh, creepy as all get out.
Ian Holmes' head just laying there with all the liquid everywhere, like blah, 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 blah. When I got to see Alien for the first time, I was just in awe of that picture, because I was in my upper teens. I was not into horror as much as a kid. You know, things scared. I mean, of course, E.T. scared me, so of course I'm not going to watch horror movies. But Alien just really struck a nerve in me that kind of was like, maybe I'd like this stuff, but I was still anxious enough to not watch everything. But Alien holds a near and dear place in my heart. I actually consider it my favorite horror film, just because I grew up with science fiction as probably my main base. So to put Alien in a proper place for favorites, I would have to give it the horror crown in my eye.
The horror genre.
The horror genre.
It's creepy.
It was so creepy, and the xenomorph kind of creeping through the tunnels, and I was like, that's the part I want to see the most. I don't get to hear it, but you'd hear like the smoke when you're going through the back tunnels. I'm not ruining anything, of course, because the ride is no longer in existence. But
I can tell you there was times that that cast members would tell me they would be terrified of that scene, and they would literally hide in the vehicle because they
would duck down.
They did not want to see the alien come down from the ceiling, and I was like, it's not real. Like, what are you doing here? I mean,
and it's coming at you like it's so cheesy because it's like on a spring. It's
Yes.
like, ha,
Yes.
I gotcha. Ah.
Yes.
It's not even.
Yes.
Oh man, it's the side one that was more scary than the top one.
It was
really.
very unpredictable. You
especially
didn't know.
especially you're in the second car.
Well, you also didn't know if it was actually going to work or not. So, that was the bigger thing. Was like, is it going to come out and play today, or is it just going to like hang out? Or if it was working, it would partially work. And...
Which is funny because it's very similar to the scene when she's escaping, when she gets on the ship and she's off on her own, and then all of a sudden he's in the wires. Mm-hmm. And when I remember seeing that part for the first time, because he blends in, they purposely had him blend in, and then you see the movement, his entire self like caught in the side of the ship, and as he's like starting to come out, you're like, oh my god, here we go.
What's gonna happen?
The terror of the two of them being stuck on this little ship together. But no, E.T. Oh, E.T. is so great. And my wife and I recently watched it. We had a little Reese's Pieces party and watched the movie. And I love E.T. so much. And so to come from being terrified of it as a child to it being a beloved film of my adulthood is doing good, I guess.
It stood the test of time.
Of course.
And even this Christmas, when they had the commercial with E.T.
Oh, yes! And Elliot came back and did the commercial.
Oh, my God. It was all the feels. I had all the feels watching
it. Really
that.
was. I forgot about that. It was so good.
Yeah.
Well, we're still being driven around by a crazy lady in our undergarments.
Yes.
And we're coming into, and you said you liked the newer one more, but the original was with Michael Caine in 1969. Donald Sutherland and Mark Wahlberg did the remake in 2003 of The Italian Job.
Yes.
For action and adventure.
Yes.
What about the newer one, I guess, more than... Have you seen both, or...?
I've seen both.
You've seen both?
Yes. So the newer one, what I like about it... What could you put in the ride? I feel like you could easily put the car chase in there, because, I mean, we have just stolen a car, so it works out. Maybe get a faster car. I don't know. But I feel like the scene that would be, like... would fit perfectly in the ride, because it's kind of similar to the Indiana Jones scene, is the scene where literally they blow the bank, or they blow the whole vehicle from underneath the roadway down into like the subway tunnel, and then had the armored car truck with them working on getting the armored car's locked bank open. I think that would be
so the heist.
Yes, the heist portion of it.
That would be interesting.
I feel like that would be very
come through
cool.
and a car just drops through a hole.
Yes.
You have to have some really heavy pulleys to be able to bring it back up for the next
Or,
drop.
I mean, it already could be down on the ground.
It might be like a brief, like, in momentum drop.
Yes. So, I think that would be a good scene to put in there, or just having the numbers to the dial and then her getting it open and you seeing the golds, you know.
There's a lot of good scenes. And I've only seen that one once, and I've never seen the classic.
Yes.
And it was good from what I remember, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen it enough to like give it a proper grading, and it's been years. I want to say I was in my teens or early 20s when it came out. It was a decent film for what I remember. You've got a great... I'm actually going to dive into your action adventure list, because this is a wonderful list. You have Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course, next, so you've got Indy still. National Treasure.
Yes.
Was a movie that I loved growing up. And
I'm still waiting on the third one. Where is the third one?
Maybe we'll get one.
Yes.
The Thomas Crown Affair, which that was a remake too, right?
Yes.
Do you like the original or the remake more?
I like the newer one with Pierce Brosnan. And Rene Russo. I love, like, I guess they're sort of caper films along the lines of where there's a sense of like the good guy, but he's doing bad things, but you know he's a really good person at the same time. So maybe it's just me in another life, you know, my bandit days of wanting to steal things. I don't know. Like, it could... Aspirations
of what could have been
if
the ride was still here.
Exactly. I could have been a great thief in another life. I don't know, but that's why, like, all of these movies that I like, they're stealing things. Have you noticed a pattern here? Like,
this is true, yes!
Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah,
I mean,
and Red, of course, is it's not really stealing, it's like they're hiding something.
Yes.
He's trying to hide while hiding his girlfriend or whatever. Yes. I haven't seen Red in a while.
He's the secret. He's the one that knows everything.
Exactly. And so, that was a great cast, too, with Red.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis and John Malkovich and Morgan Freeman, Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren was in it,
Yeah.
and then
The girl from Weeds. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Mary Louise Parker.
Mary Louise Parker, yeah.
Yes.
Great film. Very comedic, too. I
Yes.
love the comedic
John
factor.
Malkovich is hilarious.
He
in
is.
that movie.
And that was based on a graphic novel, too.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good book. I've read it once. But no, that action adventure list, that is so good. And you're right. I'm going to find your name in the paper soon, probably.
Yes.
So
I look like a good girl, but who knows? Maybe underneath, like I'm doing some like shady things over here.
Maybe. So. Now, what's great is we're gonna lose our dame and her undergarments to the birds.
Oh my God, the birds!
So I have never seen the birds.
It's creepy. That's all
I have seen like clips and bits, like in montages, or like I've watched documentaries on film, and the birds have come up.
The classic one where she's running from the birds.
That's like the most like stuck in my head moment that I remember of the bits I've seen.
The thought of the birds still terrifies me because, I mean, obviously the whole concept of it is that the birds have now decided that they are going to pretty much turn against the human population, and there are hundreds upon thousands upon millions of birds in this world, and to think that they could like form a legion and just wipe out everybody is terrifying to me.
We can have them take our current driver and whisk her away, I guess you could say. There'd be some way to do it. And then, of course,
there's a scene in The Birds.
Oh, yeah. So you've seen it. I haven't.
Yes, there's a scene in The Birds where literally they try to box up all the windows to keep the birds out of the house because they're trying to attack the people. And they're not smart enough because they don't do the chimney.
Oh.
So the birds come down the chimney.
Cool.
And they come out, and I think that would be the perfect way for them to get our lady in her undergarments.
So you could have her like kind of near the chimney, all of a sudden birds.
Yes.
And then
instead of going for that Anubis jewel, maybe she's going to warm up because she's cold in her undergarments.
That fits.
Yeah.
I love how this is coming together.
Yes.
It's so good. We're gonna go around the corner too, and I'm gonna bring up another one on your list too because I just love this movie so much. I saw it for the first time within the past couple of months. I think we watched it around Halloween. I've been trying to catch up on older horror films because my wife is a huge horror nut.
Okay.
And I wasn't growing up, so this has been kind of a chance, something for me and my wife to bond with is horror films, and she's got me into a lot of weird ones. I've always been a fan of Dracula, but I'd never seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that's your number 2. Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves, Richard E. Grant's in it, which he looks very young. You know, I watched this movie and I was like, that's him? Billy Campbell, who's in my favorite movie of all time, The Rocketeer, was in this, and I was like, oh, he did more than just The Rocketeer. Great.
I forgot about that. It's been a long time since I've seen
Great cast, and I don't know if I've said Winona Ryder, but she's in it.
Yes.
Of course, Gary Oldman, and Anthony Hopkins plays the great Van Helsing, and is trying to hunt down Gary Oldman's Dracula.
Yes.
So it was that was a fantastic film, and
I think that would fit perfectly in the ride too.
That nice little corner moment, and you could have kind of Gary Oldman like kind of looking at you like.
Yes, or him like laying out on a table like he does in the movie. I mean something, and then he just like wakes up and he comes up like that would be creepy as all get out.
Francis Ford Coppola really captured the erotic nature of vampires in that film, and that's what I think stuck out to me because it didn't just have the gothic, dark, creature of the night feel. It also had the sexual nature that the stories of Dracula and vampires have gone throughout the ages. It was such a good movie, and I loved the score too. I kind of forgot who did it, but I remember being taken by the score when I was watching. I actually listened to it in the car for a few days after seeing it. I loved it so much, but it was a great film.
Yes,
and that would be a good one with him on the table, kind of coming up at you like that.
Yes.
So we're going to go into drama.
Ooh, I'm all about the drama.
I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I remember the bagpipes. And the battle's about to go down.
Yes.
And William Wallace.
So many epic speeches in that movie.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And Braveheart.
Yes.
I remember my dad loving this film when I was a kid, and of course I got to see it eventually. He always made fun of the guy who hiked his kilt up and showed his better side.
Yes.
And my dad was a weirdo and just look at that. It's so dumb. I remember seeing this movie for the first time, and it's been a long time, so my memory is off a little. But it was just so epic, and
yes, it's a long movie. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
But
a
at
long
the same
movie.
time, even though it's long, it's a very well written story. It's not something that you feel like drags, because you're literally like hooked from the moment it starts all the way until it's pretty much ending, where, you know, Robert the Bruce goes ahead and carries out, you know, William Wallace's legacy, you know?
And of course, this is about his fight against King Edward I of England. The film was in '95, and Gibson, who actually starred as William Wallace, directed it, and he's gone on to do great ones. And of course, The Passion of the Christ is a huge movie. I loved his most recent one, Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, that was amazing.
Jesus,
that was great
that
with
film.
Andrew Garfield.
I was so impressed by his performance in that film.
Yes.
Like, you come from him being Spider-Man, this nerdy, dorky kid. It's almost like the kid that played Percy Jackson went and did the Tank movie with Brad Pitt, Fury. So to see him from being Percy Jackson to being this war-torn soldier who's coming into his own adulthood.
A different dimension.
Exactly. So watching Andrew Garfield being Spider-Man and this dorky, nerdy science geek who climbs buildings and swings around and saves people, to being this, I won't use guns.
Yes.
And goes and saves people. So I guess it's the kind of the same mentality, just in a different era.
It was a story that definitely needed to be told, so I was glad that he made it, because, you know, here was a man that had never really received, I feel like, proper recognition for what he had done up on that ridge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And I grew up with war movies. I was a huge fan of war films. My grandfather was in World War II, so anytime I got to see that era, it was like I got to see things through his eyes almost. When he was still around, and even to this day, I know he's not around anymore, but it kind of like brings up memories of talking to him about stories in World War II with that. Your second drama, too, I'm going to bring this one up because it is a huge favorite of mine. And to this day, I still can't tell if it's a dream or if it's real, what isn't. What is Christopher Nolan's Inception that came out in 2010 is such a wonderful film.
Yes.
That I saw it in IMAX when it came out.
Oh, that must have been amazing.
It was in Georgia. I was living in Georgia still, in Atlanta, and I got to see it at the Mall of Georgia Regal Theater, and it was the largest IMAX screen in Georgia. It was just, what's great about Inception is so immersive.
Yes.
Because of the dream sequences. Hello, Dexter is back.
Within the dream.
But watching that on this ginormous IMAX screen was just an experience that Christopher Nolan is huge on the theatric experience. Mm-hmm. His new movie Tenet coming out, it hit the internet. The first trailer hit the internet like a couple of weeks ago. The trailers have been in the theaters for 2 to 3 months. The first trailer came out with Hobbs and Shaw. He wanted to make sure that his film and the marketing for it at first was only seen with the theatrical experience. There's a bit of the film, I think, playing with the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker in IMAX only, that he's trying to bring you in through the cinematic experience. He is huge on theater going and experience in his films and all films.
Yes.
At the movies. And that's what I appreciate about him as a filmmaker. He's not about the gimmicks. Gimmicks can be good in certain movies, but he is not about the gimmicks. He is not about streaming, which streaming's great. I'm lazy. I, don't like to go out all the time. Stay home and watch a movie. Great thing. But he is all about going into the theater and being in the auditorium and being there amongst this group of people who share something special.
And the immersive
the immersion of the storytelling and the experience that you're about to have together in his mind. He is one of my favorite directors of all time.
I agree. I love him.
And the Batman movies he did were great, even though The Dark Knight Rises wasn't as great as we were hoping. That kind of happened because of certain events that took place in the real world that we had to figure out a way around. Overall, I mean, the Prestige is such a great film.
Yes.
Dunkirk, I got to see in 70mm, and I was in heaven with that film. It was a cinematic marvel, in my opinion. Interstellar is one of my favorite space movies of all time. He has these visions and just takes you to these places. You feel like you're there in every single one of his pictures. And of course, he's had great scoremanship with the soundtracks involved. Hans Zimmer has been on plenty of his movies.
That's one of my favorite soundtracks because it's so epic. Yes. It's so like it's here. You're in this very intense film, and the music just ties it because you're literally just on the edge of your seat as to what's coming next. How is he gonna tie it in deeper? And the music just it adds so much quality to it,
I agree. I actually own quite a few soundtrack. I'm a huge soundtrack nut. I don't think you and I have talked about this, but I'm a huge soundtrack. I own a large collection of vinyl records, and I want to say 50 to 60% of them are soundtracks. And I do have the Inception soundtrack on vinyl. It is a clear see-through variant edition that I found somehow. I love that score so much. And the song at the end, too, Time, when he's... If you haven't seen Inception by now, I know we've been trying to avoid spoiling movies for you, but if you haven't seen this movie, shame on you. I'm spoiling it. They complete the task. Leo's character is free from... I'm not going to get into the huge story, but he's free from... He was blamed for a crime that may or may not have been his fault. And he's free from it because he completed this task, and he's coming through the airport, and they're letting him through with his passport, and he's like, we did it. And this song, just the emotion that Leo's been trying to...
It's like a weight off his shoulder.
Exactly. And the song's called Time, and it's almost like the time spent is the weight off his shoulder, and it feels like all the stress coming off of him, and he's free.
Yes.
It's a song of freedom, but is it? And that is what is so good about it, is the last scene of the movie, he's free, but is he?
Yes.
Is just, oh my god. I have an idea for what scene needs to go in Movie Ride from Inception. I think it's the moment where he's discussing what Inception is to Ariadne. I forgot the actress's name.
Ellen Page.
So he's explaining how everything works to her. And the dream sequences. And so they're sitting at the little Italian cafe, and all the things are popping out. It's a great... I think it would be a great moment to kind of take place... I wouldn't say of Casablanca, but, they're having the conversation. It's very iconic. Anytime you watch, or there's a clip of an Inception, that happens to be one of the more iconic bits. Because, they're sitting there, and all these things are just exploding around them.
Yes. And it's not like nothing is happening.
Exactly. To them, it's just... in their mind.
Yes.
And it's such a good... I mean, that would be my... I don't know if you share that or not, but...
The only other one I could think of is literally... I think the scene that is most iconic to me in that movie, because I had never seen anything else in another film like that, is the scene where they are literally breaking, I guess, when it comes to dimensions. So they're walking on the buildings. That scene where the buildings are turning, and they're literally like walking down the side of a building or up a building, and just seeing that scene there, I was like, what the heck? Like,
I remember watching the behind the scenes of the sequence in the hotel when Joseph Gordon-Levitt is fighting the goons in the hallway, and like the hallway, it's this rotating hallway.
It's shifting, yes.
And they're on wires, and they're running around and doing the sequences choreographed while the hotel hall is moving, and I was like, this is so great.
I know.
I loved it, and Nolan is a mastermind. I swear to God.
Very well.
Oh, I love Inception. We could go on for hours about that movie, but we need to move on to our animated area, which Brad Bird has done incredible things for film, both animated and live action. I love his Mission Impossible movie, and Michael Giacchino's score is phenomenal. The Incredibles.
Oh my god, I love it. I love it.
The Incredibles is such a great movie.
And then finally, they gave me a sequel that I've been waiting years and years and years for, and the sequel, just as good as the first one.
I agree completely. That movie was great. I didn't get to ride the Incredicoaster until recently, and that was...
very well themed.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Num Num Cookie.
Yes.
Num Num Cookies.
Yes.
So, no, Incredibles is great, and I am a huge fan of that, because it was... I want to say it was one of the first times Disney brought the superhero aspect to animation.
Yes.
And, of course, with Pixar's help. I just remember seeing it and being like, it was action-packed, great story, great heart.
Yes. And I mean, the whole concept of that people wouldn't like superheroes was just mind-boggling.
It's like Disney's version of Watchmen almost.
Yeah, I could totally see that. But like here, every other movie that we've ever seen, all the Marvel movies, they've always been like the good guy, you know what I mean? But it's never really showed, I guess, the destruction that the good guys do sometimes.
Exactly.
And that's what you kind of get in The Incredibles is like, look at these problems I have to clean up for you, because you are making a mess because
Tax dollars at work.
Exactly.
Thanks, man.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
you're kind of like, oh, you see the other side. Yeah, they're doing all these great things and they're, catching robbers and all that. But also, like, at what cost are they doing that? Because now you've blown up a building in the process and you've cost us how much money? So very interesting. And the whole idea of a superhero witness protection program just is hilarious in my opinion. So,
Do you have a specific scene off the top of your head that would be your moment?
this sounds weird, but at the end when Jack is the babysitter, like
Yeah.
the mom is calling the babysitter and she's like, Jack is doing some really weird things and I don't know. And then like you see the scene where literally he's doing all these crazy little antics and you're realizing that Jack has powers
Yeah.
is quite hysterical because you obviously go on to learn these things in the second movie.
Which was the funniest,
Yes.
the funniest scene in the second one was him and the
Agreed.
raccoon.
Yes! Did you watch the extras at the end of the film?
Yes, I did.
So you
Yes, I
know
did.
the story behind the raccoon then?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's
We
I
have to
think-
save it for the listeners, but
Yes.
I loved when he's tied up in the chair and just goes ablaze like Human Torch, and the raccoon's like, "Oh crap, I'm in trouble."
Yes.
That moment, I
Yes.
cried
Yes.
laughing. It was so well done, and the wait was worth it for Incredibles 2, and wonderful piece of animated film.
Yes.
That I
Hopefully they make a third now.
Oh man, let's bring in more superheroes
Yes.
like they did with the second one. I was happy they
Exactly.
did that too.
Yes.
So we're going into what would be Wizard of Oz, but again, comedy isn't really something the ride brought to light. It was featured a lot of finale, and it was some undertones of some of the other places on the ride. So I wanted to capture it, and what better place to come in to where Wizard of Oz would be and laugh up a storm. In my opinion, your favorite comedy is It's Complicated, which I have not seen.
I don't know if that one would actually fit in the ride.
I don't think so either, because that's the Meryl Streep from 2009 with
Yes.
Steve Martin.
It's Meryl Streep, Steve Martin, and it's got Alec Baldwin in it.
I would
So-
of your list here, because you've got While You Were Sleeping, Pretty Woman, which I have seen, Wedding Crashers.
Yes.
It would be a little inappropriate, but weddings are huge events, so the Wizard of Oz feeling like an event scene.
Yes.
It could go well, and you could even kind of capture Tootsie, because I believe there was a part in finale.
Yes.
The
Where
scene
she's
from Tootsie.
walking in her or he's walking in his drag costume, I guess you could say. But yes.
And so either way you have it, you could put something there. But it isn't really. I just wanted to capture comedy because
Yes.
I'm a huge comedy fan. I
Yes.
love laughing. I have the most ridiculous laugh, and I love it. And Dexter is in the background whining because he knows my laugh is horrible. Even if we don't have a spot to put on the ride, I do want to visit some of your comedic tastes. So It's Complicated. I've never seen it. What is it about that film that just is your favorite?
Well, it's by this director/writer. Her name is Nancy Myers, and she's done a lot of films. And she just has a good sense of humor. She's done The Intern, which has Robert De Niro, and it has Anne Hathaway in it. Kind of, I guess, people at the best way to describe it is people, older generation, like at a second chance, you know what I mean? Kind of in the second stage of their life. That's how The Intern is Robert De Niro's wife has passed away, and he is now going out and getting a job again, and he becomes an intern at Anne Hathaway's company. This movie itself It's Complicated is kind of Meryl Streep in the second portion of her life. You know, she's a divorcee, and Alec Baldwin is her ex-husband, and her kind of trying to figure out, like, what the second portion of her life is going to be, you know, as a divorcee, and kind of the comedy and comical situation she gets into. So, yes.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it. Like I said, I was going through your list. I have seen Pretty Woman. I have seen Wedding Crashers, and Tootsie is a long time ago.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one, too, but
I
still
love,
pretty iconic.
I love Wedding Crashers so much. It's so ridiculous. It's so obnoxious. Will Ferrell's cameo. If you haven't seen it, again, I'm ruining it, even though I said I won't. Ma, the meatloaf!
There's so many quotable lines from that
There
movie.
is. But
So-
that's the one that sticks out to me the most. And Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson's chemistry together is bar none.
Yes.
They were so great together.
Yes. Very much.
I love those two. And Vince Vaughn, when Jon Favreau did Swingers, and Vince Vaughn was in Hacksaw Ridge. We were talking about that earlier too. I forgot he was one of the sergeants or officers.
Yes.
To Andy
Very
Griffith.
different side of him.
He does dramas sometimes, which is great. But I have always loved his, because he's so quick-witted with his delivery.
Yes.
And he's on it and on it and on it. And I just love him as an actor. He can come off annoying and boastful, but I feel that he's quick-witted.
Yes.
And I love that about him a lot. Of course, almost, wow. Wow. One of my favorite comedies and favorite movies is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which is a
I've
Wes
never
Anderson.
seen that one.
Oh my gosh. Great film. Wes Anderson directed it. Bill Murray is Steve Zissou, and he finds out that he has a son that is Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson was such a great actor in that film, and I love the movie overall. The ensemble is wonderful. You have Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum is great. Angelica Houston is Bill Murray's wife, who the entire movie is... It's like they're not together, but they are, and the whole time she's like, I'm going to leave you, but she doesn't, but she does. And there's just so many different things going on. Kate Blanchett's in it. I love her. She's my favorite actress of all time. It is a wonderful piece of humor. If you're a fan of Wes Anderson's movies, I highly recommend. I grew up loving that film just because Bill Murray, his character of Steve Zissou, really, I don't know, set the tone for me of like my comedic taste, like my style of humor and what I like in comedy, I think. And it was a fantastic film. I think it came out the year I graduated high school, and I watched it. His crew, they have like a boat, and his own boat crew. They all had like the red hats and tracksuits, and they all match. And I think I immediately was like trying to find the hat because I knew I couldn't afford the tracksuit. I wanted to be part of the Zissou crew. Exactly. It's a costume I definitely still want to do for Halloween someday. So maybe when I get a little more gray and older, I can pull off the Bill Murray aspect and be Steve Zissou. It would be great. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming on and being a guest, and it was so great working Movie Ride with you, and the fact that we get to revisit something that, if it wasn't for it, you and I would never have met.
Exactly.
And so...
a passion of both of ours.
Exactly. It's so great to have you on, and we're going to have you on another episode here soon. We're going to talk about some favorites, films that have inspired you that may not be like your favorites, film scores, directors, things you haven't seen, which your list, some of them I have, and I'm not.
Do you agree with me? Is it possible?
There are movies that you need to see on that list, so I am very excited to talk to you about those.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, so thank you for listening to the Great Movie Radio Show, and we will see you all soon. The Great Movie Radio Show is recorded in Orlando, Florida. You can visit our website at www.thegmrshow.com. Art direction and logo design provided by Mr. Bayless. Voiceover and intro work provided by Dave Fesky and Joe Erickson. You can find our podcast on multiple platforms such as Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and many more. Music provided by the YouTube Audio Library. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search The Great Movie Radio Show or The GMR Show. This has been The Great Movie Radio Show. We hope you enjoy your day, and we'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of. Goodbye, everyone.
You have been listening to a WGMR radio production.